welcome all and thank you for joining our webinar. Today's webinar is it's a continuation of our last one, which was part of a presentation that we gave with two really important district partners to Formative. First, the last webinar we just did was with Chicago Public Schools, and this one will be with Prince George's County Public Schools, two of Formative's important clients and partners on some really great work that you'll hear more about. And we had presented this data and done a version of this panel for the Council of Great City Schools just back a little over a month ago. So happy for you all to join us here today, and we've got a lot of great stuff to share. I want to allow our featured presenters briefly to introduce themselves. They come by way of Prince George's County Public Schools, and again are going to have some great things to share about their important work in Prince George's County.
Sure, thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharaska Coleman. I serve as the Chief Operating Officer for Prince George's County Public Schools. Prior to that, I served as the Associate Superintendent for Supporting Services. Prior to that, I served as a principal in 3 of our schools in our school system, 2 high schools and 1 middle school. And before that, I had an opportunity to serve as a teacher and assistant principal. So I've been with Prince George's County Schools for 29 years, and I'm happy to be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kiba Baldwin. I am the Director of Transportation and Central Provided Services here for Prince George's County Public Schools. I've been in education now for about 20 years, half of that spent in transportation. And I've been here in the county for a little under 2 years now. And prior to that, I've served in districts in Virginia and North Carolina. I started my career in education as a science teacher. Moved through the ranks up to administration, from a principal to student services director, and now into transportation. So I'm happy to be here and share what we've been doing with Formative. Carl, you're on mute.
Pardon me. Pardon me for that. I'll start again. I'm Carl Allen, CEO and founder of Formative. Thank you, Director Baldwin, for the save. I was the Director of Transportation for Boston Public Schools. That's when I started in the school transportation space. That was about 15 years ago. Started Formative 7 years ago, and Formative is a student transportation strategy, technology, and management company. And we're going to talk about our consultative work today with Prince George's County, but we are also a bit of a decentralized, tech-enabled manager of transportation services for a number of different kinds of schools around the country too. You can see some of our clients there listed, but we've worked across the country with various districts, big and small, and charter school networks too. Want to talk a bit about our approach, and this is what you will hear in the Prince George's County story. First, anytime we enter a new context is to understand. And so we do a deep and broad look at what are the particular context challenges, goals, and characteristics of a system, try to understand, root cause of what's happening in terms of performance, in terms of equity, in terms of sustainability, again, what the goals of our clients are. We do very deep analytical work and then design work. Again, different, very sophisticated lenses to look and understand how efficient a system is relative to what it's trying to achieve, and then do a lot of work designing, co-designing, simulating different policy structures, different route designs, different ways for districts to operate, but then work with our district partners shoulder to shoulder to help them, empower them through building their capabilities and giving them tools and supports to actually then implement the solutions that we have recommended. So you're going to hear a bit about that in the story of Prince George's County Schools, and I'll turn it to Dr. Coleman to kind of explain, what we encountered there, what was the context and the challenge that PGCS was facing.
Yeah, thank you so much. So again, just a bit of context around Prince George's County Public Schools. We are the second largest school district in the state of Maryland, behind only Montgomery County Public Schools. We service approximately 130,000 students, and we transport approximately 85,000 students daily. We are an urban, suburban, and rural school district all rolled into one across approximately 500 square miles. Um, 2 years ago, we started with a new superintendent. His name is Mr. Millard House II. And he acknowledged coming in that we had longstanding performance issues and challenges with our transportation system, and he gave a commitment to helping resolve those challenges. As other districts across the country, we were no different. We had a persistent driver shortage that was exacerbated by COVID, and that actually compounded the issues that we faced with respect to having on-time arrivals that were consistent and in a timely manner. It all resulted in a low level of trust, quite frankly, from our community, that we could actually see the problem and solve the problem and challenges that we faced. And so to address this, Superintendent House opted to contract with Formative to come in with a fresh set of eyes to do a third-party independent audit within his first semester of joining the school system. This was a very important strategy step, quite frankly, for the administration. Because of that low trust, we did need a fresh set of eyes to come in and give us a mandate on one, assessing where our challenges were, and more importantly, where our opportunities were to grow. So the project goals were outlined publicly and transparently to evaluate our transportation operations objectively, to identify solutions and estimated impact of those changes, select a few strategies to implement over a multi-year period. And so that was key because we knew that because this was a deep-seated set of challenges that we faced, that we needed to be committed to long-term changes in our operations in order to make lasting impact. And then finally, to set up a way to transparently monitor what we are doing to help improve our transportation system in an effort to build trust. And so we committed early on, after the audit was completed, to quarterly board meetings so that we could provide clear updates based on data metrics, how we were doing, what our consistent challenges were, and what we were doing to overcome those challenges. So if we can go to the next slide. So from the audit that was completed, and it took the better part of the full first semester, we were able to identify from Formative that there were 12 areas of improvement that we needed to consider. And we socialized the full report as well as the executive summary of these outcomes with the full Board of Education as well as our listening public, so that they could react and understand and see that we were being very transparent and not defensive about the challenges that we faced as a system, and that we were committed to that improvement. And so, again, I want to reiterate that transparency that we had with our community and our board, I believe, while painful at the time, ended up helping to rebuild the trust that we're still continuing to work towards regaining with our public. And so from these 12 prioritized recommendations, we committed to the county constituents that we really needed to identify the top 5 leverage points that needed to be implemented first, and look at the impact, right? We wanted to first identify those areas that were of most importance, and certainly not go too far that our constituents, our families, actually couldn't manage it, but instead find the sweet spot between what would have an impact versus what might be a bridge too far for our families to process and really accept. And so you can see from the stars here that the first place we needed to start, and that was with input from Formative, was aligning and balancing our school bell times. We looked at differentiating our service levels and consolidating bus stops. We conducted an audit, and it's ongoing, an audit of our walk boundary safety zones. We started to implement an opt-out for our families that didn't need transportation but qualified for it. And then finally, looking at adopting a user-centered customer service focus so that we could begin to engage with our families in a meaningful way around our communication strategy.
And I'll just add there, thank you, Dr. Coleman, that, going from here, the findings, you can just see how broad reaching the audit was and it included quantitative and qualitative analysis, understanding of utilization, bell time and balance, an analysis of boundaries, walk zones, process mapping, a lot of also qualitative interviews of different stakeholders. And that's how we got to this broad list of recommendations that then the district prioritized smartly as, how we would start the work. Director Baldwin?
Yes. So looking at the strategies and the implementation milestones, we were able to take those prioritized recommendations and build strategies and an action plan. And with those, we were able to take 13 start times down to 3 start times for the start of the 24-25 school year, beginning at 7:30, 8:30, and 9:30. The service level differentiation and the target stop consolidations, we have implemented a bus stop evaluation plan developed with NHTSA to help evaluate those stops for walk to stop distances and safe passage. We were able to review roughly about 2,500 of those stops so far. And again, it was mentioned earlier, this becomes an ongoing effort with us with reviewing our stops. The walk zone was next, our non-transportation zone, reassessing that because our walk to school parameters were the same. Here with our elementaries, they can walk up to 1.5 miles, and our secondary can walk up to 2 miles. So we reevaluated that. Again, this is an ongoing effort because we have placed bus stops inside of our walk zones. And so we are evaluating why and reassessing if that is something that needs to maintain. We have definitely added some safe passage coordinators to our mix, and they help as to help review our stops. They serve as a liaison between our county officials so that if there are certain barriers that are not under purview of the school system, it becomes a purview of the county. And so that's creating a good collaboration with rectifying some of our barriers. The codified opt-out, we have embedded an opt-out plan. Right now, we're tied to our student information system for collecting all student information. And so we are pushing an opt-out versus an opt-in. Hopefully, in the next couple of years, we may be able to do that, but we are using that. We were able to receive about 7,800 of our families initially for opt-out to start the school year. So that's been an ongoing process that we are excited about. And then the last one was enhancing our customer service. This is improving our service of our parent app, our communication methods, and training staff. And so we committed to our families that, listen, for our records for this current school year, we're going to tell you what bus your child was on and be able to tell you where that bus is. So in case we're running late or any other instance, you'll have that notification. And again, that is ongoing. So we have ramped up our methods. We have moved personnel into different positions to allow better operational processes to occur with identifying buses that we have to cover for vacant trips from that point, and being able to send those messages out to our families to try to keep folks in the know about the transportation concerns with their kids and where the bus lies from that standpoint.
Thanks, sir. And we've got a few more slides or another slide here just kind of talking about the results. You mentioned, you alluded to the bell times and the shifts that were made. And I think this also kind of illustrates the iterative and very practical sort of approach that we took to get to what we would ultimately do.
Mhm. Yes. So very important what the impact of the bell time had on our schools. And as you can see that we started with the 13 original bell times began at 7:45 and went to about 9:30, and we were able to make shifts that again was able to impact but not overload our parents from those changes. So 20% of our schools had no change, 62 shifted by 15 minutes, 8% shifted by that 16 to 30, and 8% shifted to 31 to 45. And so it was a very meaningful change, but it was very low impactful for us, but it made an impact. And the enhance, engage, and evaluate is the approach that we've taken. Dr. Coleman says it best as that we're looking for progress over perfection. And I'll let him.
And if I could just add to that whole philosophy around enhance, engage, and evaluate, that was carried not just with the bell times, but with all 5 of the prioritized recommendations. And so with that transparency with the public and the superintendent prioritizing the transportation improvement plan as a district priority helped us to really address the sacred cows that up to that point in our district you just couldn't touch, right? 26,000 of our 85,000 children lived inside of the walk zone. And so these families were accustomed to getting bus service, even though they lived within walking distance to the schools. And we needed this mandate both from the independent assessment from formative and the superintendent signaling that we need to fix these longstanding issues in order to get parent buy-in to actually reassess those bus stops and which ones needed to be removed, or to look at making bell time adjustments that up to this point, we just hadn't made those changes. So that's what became exciting for us. And we're continuing to leverage that priority that we have as a transportation team is as we move into year 2 of our implementation of our action plan, we're continuing to look at every area of our system, whether it's something we historically didn't touch or not, and working to address it.
I'll just add here again, this illustrates too, it's the, the iterative and broad engagement, but also, the approach that we took, which was to design a whole set of scenarios and then look at each and understand kind of the differential impacts on families and where, and school communities and what we, including staff, and where we landed was, you can see this is a powerful slide, I think, in that school board context was that, as Director Baldwin said, 22% of schools weren't going to change at all. The bulk of the schools that were experiencing any change were experiencing a very small change, but yet we'd calculated that would still have a market impact on our ability to pair routes, run routes longer and therefore pick up more students and so be more efficient, use fewer buses. And there were still, some schools that we'd identified that we needed to make bigger shifts to create more alignment, but it was really, that was minimized. And so that really helped get the ultimate solution over the finish line, that kind of pragmatic approach. The next phase and the phase kind of that we're in now, or one part of the phase that we're in now, along with the ongoing strategic work, is where we have worked with Prince George's County to help design and build and now implement a performance management dashboard, which is monitoring progress over key metrics, service levels, on-time performance, many of which are directly aligned to the specific strategic goals and metrics, but are also very broad-based in terms of just creating a way to monitor the pulse of the operation, even when it comes to things like safety and and maintenance or other areas, the costs of the system. And so now working with the team to build their data fluency and how they can use this tool to better understand issues as they arise, understand trends, and see the progress then too against these key strategic goals that they continue to work towards. I'll flip, and at any point you guys jump into and kind of comment as to how you're using it, but I'll just share some other key pages here of the dashboard. On-time performance, very, very important, giving the team the ability to track one of the actually kind of front or beginning or most foundational, I'll say, data elements is just your data capture. And that's been a process of just making sure we're capturing the data to analyze on-time performance. And then for the data that we have, seeing which schools, which routes, which terminals are experiencing the lateness, first tier, second tier, third tier, to be able to more critically analyze and take action on-time performance has been critical. On the staffing front, that's a key page for monitoring the driver hiring situation and call outs, and just making sure that the team is progressing on their key goals there. Also on the service level detail, this is where the team is looking for those opportunities for further stop consolidation, or are we holding the line on making sure we're not being overly accommodating where that's not necessary? Can we maintain this efficiency year over year in terms of walk to stop distance, and safety and compliance being another key area where we've created some visualizations. And go ahead, Director Baldwin.
I will say that this has been a very, very complimentary tool for us. I'm a person that loves data, so I like to make data-driven decisions. And by having the dashboard and being able to utilize it has been a turn for this department. And so we are working every day in it. We're exploring what this data shares. It has been affirmation to what we know, and using it to help predict future pathways. And so the on-time performance module is very good because it allows us to really key in, even with our driver shortage. We have over 100 vacant routes in which our team covers every day, and we still have a decent percentage for on-time performance, but it does lend to, can we improve more based on what we have, the resources that we have. So utilizing this day in and day out, asking those important questions about what does the data show us, what can we take away, where can we improve. It allows us to make those decisions if we need to shift drivers to a different location to improve on-time performance, the whole gamut. So I'm just excited to have this opportunity to have this with our team and let it kind of drive us in the direction that we want it to go. Thanks.
Just make sure to unmute myself this time. I'll share then too. Part of the partnership is, Formative's helped to build the data connections, clean the data, do the coding, build this dashboard, deploy the dashboard that now the team is using. But I also talked about what's key to our partnership and processes, capacity building and just continued support. So along those lines, we meet regularly and support the team with engaging in inquiry. What do we see in the data? How do you use it to answer critical questions? And then as a next support as well, providing syntheses and quarterly reports that then the team can use, our own takes on. Now this is what the data shows us. Those have been really important, as well as supporting with, okay, given that the data shows us this and the goal is this is the action plan we need to undertake to achieve our goals. And go ahead, Dr. Coleman.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. I was just going to reiterate the importance of this step for us, because we established early on what the key performance indicators were publicly that we were looking to address with our public and our board. And so we have maintained that focus on the same performance indicators and tracked our progress with the help of the reports and from Formative, tracked our progress or challenges in each of those areas. And that has helped us tell a story of progress, right? Now, families still have their individual experiences, whereas Director Baldwin shared, it's not perfect. We aren't in a place where we've addressed the entire driver shortage as an example, but we can certainly point to, based on the metrics that were established, tangible data-backed progress in areas that are telling a story of improvement that we're very proud of.
I'll leave it to you too, Dr. Coleman, to address this, just sort of the lessons learned and what's next now for the district.
Yeah, thank you so much. So again, we have the playbook. We have our 12 prioritized recommendations, and our commitment and our messaging to the public has been that we're committed to long-term improvement. And so year one, we're concluding now, and we've implemented the top five prioritized recommendations that we've identified, but we've already begun signaling to our board and our public the next set of prioritized recommendations that we're going to be adding to the five. And so what that looks like is we're not shifting away from the initial five. We're going to continue to deepen our work on the five prioritized recommendations from year one and refine them for continued improvement. But at the same time, we now have the capacity to now include some of the other areas that we would like to dig into, like diversifying our modal mix, as an example, where we're continuing to utilize an additional set of vans and contracted services to better meet the diverse needs of our district, and other areas that we're looking to expand upon. So it's definitely an opportunity to expand and refine.
Well, thank you both. I just want to add, from the formative standpoint, this has been a great partnership and great to be a part of supporting your team and supporting the work. And I know there's more work to be done, but proud of what we've been able to do together. And I think it's a great example for other districts. And so I hope folks that are in attendance here today got something out of this. And at this time, I want to open it up for questions. I'll share my screen so you can see us a little bit better. Stop sharing my screen, that is. And I have one question in here, but folks can feel free to add more. There is a Q&A prompt, or you could put it in the chat to the hosts, and myself or the panelists will do our best to answer your questions. And we've got plenty of time here, to take as many as come through. So I see, how are you capturing the data for different areas for the dashboard? This is coming from Diana Mack Henry. And so I can speak from a technical standpoint, and then maybe the team can speak about kind of the nature of these different sources. But we did a lot of work at the outset to identify, these formative has this our 9 key areas where that we wanted to collect data, and just identifying where those data resided and what format did that exist. In many instances, like the SIS or the routing system, it was getting raw exports, but in other places it was kind of files and different data systems that were used, where we pull it all into one place and clean it, and then build those connections to the dashboard, and then identify at what time intervals did we want to need to see, or could we update that data. So some of the data is updated every day, some of it is weekly, some of it's monthly or quarterly. But then in some, it builds up over the course of a school year, and now we'll have year-over-year data as we get into next year. This ability to see a lot of really rich data across these different areas, and bringing data together from different sources to build really powerful insights. What else would you guys say about maybe some of the challenges that we encounter trying to get the data in there? Or even as we're learning, as we're coding it and just consuming the data, how it continues to evolve.
Right. Yeah. I would say you said a lot of it, Carl, but just being able to pull the data in from the different systems. We're looking at our routing system. Routing data. We have GPS data. We have our just operational data when it comes to accidents, the staffing data. All of that plays a part of being able to bring that into one location and really analyze it has been very important. And so I would just say get it all together, from that raw, and just make sure, most importantly, that we want to make sure we're talking apples to apples and not apples to oranges with that data. So the interpretation is important.
And the only thing that I would add to that is, Director Baldwin is doing an excellent job of also working with the team around the ultimate question of so what, right? So you do all the work to actually identify the data that matters, try to get it into a system that is consumable for your team. But now the team, there's an actual professional development process that you have to go through so that they can turn that data into something that can be analyzed and actually used in a way to benefit the decision making of the district. And so answering that so what question with your team is an important exercise that it takes time to develop.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Another question here from Paul Bertulis. I hope I pronounced that right. Would you speak more on consolidating bus stops within the walk zone? Were they mostly there due to safety considerations, or were they legacy stops?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an interesting concept that that's kind of a new one. So it's good to
Yeah.
talk about that, Director Baldwin.
Yep. So that was a great question. To answer it, it's a little bit of both. We have areas where stops have been in place because of construction, because of roadways from that standpoint inside a walk zone, and so we just looked at those things and made a consideration that we can pull them out. And as long as we are able to define a safe passage, then we are letting families know that they would no longer have this stop. And we're eliminating those barriers to work with that. And so part of a second step with that is I mentioned earlier, safe passage coordinators. These are positions that will assist us in assessing stops and safe passage, but also if there are barriers that are outside of our scope that need to be relayed to the county, that the county could possibly come in and alleviate some of that so that we could pull that bus out, then that's the role of that team.
And I'll just add, I think this is a good example of one core concept for formative, which is strategic service differentiation. And so just as within, in the instructional environment, teams and teachers work to utilize data to differentiate instruction in accordance with, the needs of the students, transportation departments can be more strategic about how they're differentiating with either modes or service levels or service design based on the needs of students. So, commonly districts have different walk to stop policies by grade, but maybe less common is by program. So one of the things we did was look at, specifically magnet students or choice school students, that they could have a different walk to stop distance, a farther distance to stops because they're covering longer distances with those routes to help streamline those routes. That's one example. Another example is this walk zone situation where typically what I found in districts is that there's a walk boundary and then there are hazards that, allow for students within the walk zone to get transportation. But, just like somebody that's, just like you might think about the magnet student or the choice student, offering them a stop, a differential sort of stop. Someone that's in the walk zone, you might say, well, if you're in the walk zone, even if there's a hazard, like a big highway, cutting in front of the school, you can't walk there. It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily get the same service levels as a student, by grade that's in kind of the regular attendance zone for that school. So that you could actually allow a bigger affordance for walk to stop within the walk zone. Because if it's a 2-mile walk zone, that student had the potential to walk, if that hazard weren't there, they may walk as far as 2 miles to school, right? Whereas if they were outside the walk zone, let's say they're a second grader and you've got a 1/4 mile walk to stop, a 1/4 mile is the farthest that you'd have them walk. If they're in that hazard zone, you might say a 1/2 mile or a mile actually might be the tolerable distance to have you walk to a stop. It's still better than, they would have if they were walking to school, and you're certainly offering them something because of that hazard. So that's an example of a very fine-tuned kind of service differentiation. If you have a lot of those students, you might be able to have fewer stops within that walk zone and save a lot of time on routes. Good. Here's another question. How long did it take to complete the audit? That one just popped up. I think Director Baldwin had said it was about 6 months to do the full comprehensive audit, including site visits, a lot of remote work, a lot of data pulling and analytics, interviews over Zoom, focus groups. But about 6 months, I think, sounds about right.
Yep.
But very much worth the time to cover, yeah, the breadth of what we did. This is another question is about example of where you've seen real cost savings that you could we identified in the audit and that you've been able to realize, whether that's on like a aggregate basis or on a per student basis. Have you found any cost savings?
So one of the things that we've been very careful about, and we've had the support of our Board of Education in this, is that this is about improving efficiency while maintaining safe transportation systems for our children. And so we have not put cost savings at the forefront of this improvement. It's for us, the priority has more so been about efficiency while gains, while not losing any of our, by compromising on safety for our children. And so we've been hyper focused on that. And as time passes, if we are to see any significant gains from a cost savings perspective, then that's something that we will call out. But we do not want that to be seen as a perceived driver in our work, because then it begins to muddle our goals and our approach and quite frankly, our motives.
Yeah, I can say, and that was important in this work, was the focus was really about achieving coverage, improving on-time performance. I think, and that's been the focus. Question about the routing software you use. Maybe, yeah, Director Baldwin, you can share about kind of your thinking about future systems and what you've got now.
Right. So currently we use TransFinder and Zonar for GPS. And so that has helped us. It has helped us see where more potential lies from that standpoint. And so really getting to the point of being able to define what our needs are in terms of what we want from a routing system. So this process has been very instrumental in developing this, but it is TransFinder that we use right now.
And they're also asking about the other technology on the buses. And you can speak a little bit. It's not as relevant to the efficiency work, but you have an interesting arrangement with your technology. Yeah.
Correct. So we have Zonar tablets, which Zonar has the pre-trip inspection. We do have the RF readers, but we're not really utilizing them full scale. And then we have the Wayfinder app that is on the Zonar tablet. That's accessible through the tablet for turn-by-turn directions from that standpoint. We also utilize Bus Patrol. And so we have the stop arm cameras. And by virtue of the fact we have the interior cameras as well. So that helps us for student surveillance, camera surveillance, security from that standpoint, as well as the stop arm needs for stopping from that standpoint.
And I'll say actually the next page that we're building out into Formative's standard dashboard is one for ridership tracking. And so that could either consume ridership data that's coming from a system like a ZPass or a Smart Tag or one of these other systems that can do RFID or tap on student attendance with tablets. Or Formative also has launched kind of a low-tech solution that can actually take paper-based ridership attendance sheets that drivers fill out and then process those using optical text recognition software to digitize the data and actually get, over a period of time, a very good sample of actual ridership with students identified. And that we can then present in our dashboard. And one of the things that we found, those systems are very expensive. It's cumbersome. It's hard to operationalize with fidelity. Also, they're not built for kind of aggregate analysis or understanding ridership. They're really built, their software that accompanies these systems. The data is there, but the systems are really built for, just that kind of use case that a parent calls and a student's missing, and you can see that a student got off at a particular stop, and it's useful to have that data. But so we can consume it and build these more aggregate views to help you analyze from an efficiency standpoint how where ridership is less than what you've planned. That's a really powerful insights that you can get. I think it's sufficient to get it in kind of batches. Like you can do periodic audits where you're getting a sample and have a good sense of here's a bus that only half the students that we've routed are riding. And then you can make some critical decisions about consolidation or opting students out, removing them from ridership if they're not using the bus. I think last question, I'll try to combine two questions into one. Okay, no, it's actually the same question, but it's in two different places. It's about the bell time study. So this is from Douglas Camp. And thank you all for these great questions. It asks, regarding the bell time study, what restrictions did you have to work around? For example, did you keep all high schools at the same time or the same tier to accommodate sports? Or also, was there a request to reduce your operational window? So maybe I'll let you answer, Dr. Coleman, but I'll say, from our standpoint, we don't, it's very easy, I'll say, to do an analytical, like what's a way to balance the number of trips across bell times? That's very easy, actually. But what's hard is saying, well, these other objectives, like high schools want to stay late, or these schools don't want to move, and this school wants to move, and the instructional days are different. And so that's where there's really all this understanding of, what are the kind of these pragmatic approaches and scenarios that we came up with, and the different goals that we're trying to meet. I'll let Dr. Coleman speak to kind of what those goals and challenges were around moving the bell.
Sure, and I'm sure Director Baldwin would like an opportunity to answer as well. Just revisiting the context that we're a school district that is one of the 20 largest in the country. So we have over 200 schools, and about approximately 120 of them are elementary schools. And so we didn't have the bandwidth, the resources to put all elementary schools on one tier, all middle schools on one tier, and all high schools on one tier. We just logistically could not do that. In addition to that, kind of to what Carl was just suggesting, the study said one thing, the audit report said one thing, but people feel very strongly about their bell times for their particular school. And so we knew early on that we can only go so far without really short-circuiting support from the public for making these bedrock adjustments that we needed to make first. And then all the other 4 recommendations really rested on the success of the bell time alignment. So one of the variables we had to take into account was public opinion around the shift. From there, we had to look at, as you suggested, interscholastic athletics, after-school activities. We have partnerships with the local community college for dual enrollment and transportation to and from there for classes, high school work study programs. Some of our older children care for younger siblings who might attend the local middle or elementary school. Considerations around student safety. And how light is it or dark is it at the time that we're suggesting that those students' bell time shift to. And so all of those kind of components and others went into the discussion, and we had to spend time talking with the academic team to really identify what those pain points were for each level and how we could address that threshold and meet it so that they could actually support the adjustments that we ultimately came up to. So I'll turn it over to Director Baldwin.
Yeah. And so the other side of that was operational, where we really had to think about our fleet and staffing capacity. We have 12 bus terminals throughout the county, and each terminal has a different set of buses. And so we had to think about the service area and being able to have enough drivers to service schools in their area at the proposed tiers. And so that was something that we looked at, and that was some of the changes of the school bell times that were recommended really was about how many trips were used to service that school and if we had available staffing for those tiers. So very important part to add to the academic, the instructional piece to bring it all together as one. And you know what, we're still working it. With despite the driver shortage, we're still getting kids there to school safely and timely. But it's a constant work with our teams to cover runs and take note of what we talked about in terms of seat utilization, who's really riding. Because one thing that we have in our district, we every student is assigned a bus stop. And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do an opt-in, but for logistical reasons, we are doing an opt-out from that standpoint. So it was really a collaborative effort, and it's still an ongoing effort.
And I would just like to add, this is one of those seminal areas when we were focused on the bell time alignment, where we were very vulnerable as a young administration to whether or not this transportation action plan was either going to get off the ground and work or not, and having Formative there to support us through the coaching and kind of how far do we go with the bell time adjustments. Formative proved to be very helpful. I definitely want to articulate that because their perspective from working with other districts to be able to anticipate the reaction if we changed X percentage of schools by an hour or more, we can anticipate this reaction. Or if we changed a lower percentage by 60 minutes or more, we might expect a different reaction. And so having that expertise helped to guide us so that we could find a space that was impactful enough to move our operation and make it more efficient, but not so radical that we lost public support. Formative proved to be very helpful in us finding that sweet spot.
Thanks for that, Dr. Coleman and Director Baldwin. The last question was about the opt-in versus the opt-out, and you spoke to that a little bit, Director Baldwin. I can say, you as part of the rationale related to the, similar to what you just said, Dr. Coleman, with the bell times, we also assessed that an opt-in is a riskier strategy that really relies on, how much do you trust your data, the phone numbers and emails that you may have for families, their addresses, to make sure everyone understands, gets the communication that this is the new way. And if they don't get the memo, or there's a language barrier and they don't opt in and then lose their bus assignment, that is a very risky move. And so starting with the opt-out to kind of identify those non-riders, even while, we embark on this, another strategic effort is just trying to have better data and better communication with families, right? Such that you could have a more reliable channels for families to opt in if you were to go to an opt-in. If your infrastructure is not there and your data isn't clean, opt-in can be a very risky strategy and one of those things that could sink you too. So that was another pragmatic piece. All right. Well, thank you. We're at time, a little longer than I wanted to go, perhaps, but we've still got 10 minutes in the hour. And that was a great conversation. And I really appreciate all the questions, all the participation from those who came. Thank you so much. And thank you to Dr. Coleman and Director Baldwin for joining us and for sharing all your great work. We, of course, look forward to continuing to work with you. And for everybody here, if you want to find out more, please feel free to reach out directly to us. This recording of this webinar will be posted via the Formative website. You can get to our student mobility hub. We post all of our webinars and some other useful materials, or please just reach out to us. And thank you for joining, everyone. Have a great day.